a ship that it's claimed has the capacity to clean up the catastrophe currently licking Louisiana's shores. Hello and welcome to this edition of Environment. Since oil first started splurging many weeks ago, this ship, along with a fleet of others, have been waiting for the signal to go and set sail to help rescue the Gulf Coast. This week, we're going to be looking at the chaotic cleanup efforts of that disaster. Strewn with confusion and a lack of organisation, some of the measures taken to mop up the mess have only made matters worse. Next, we'll be moving from polluting petrol to the growing interest in shale gas. Nearly all the large American energy companies have already bought up options in Poland's potential stores. Gulliver Cragg will be showing us how a country currently dependent on Russian imports could become an energy exporter. And finally, wanting money for doing nothing. South America's second largest oil producer, Ecuador, asks the world to pay them to leave vast reserves of crude untouched. Well, we're currently cruising on the Kadim R, just one of a fleet of vessels made here in France that specialise in marine pollution control. The eco-ocean boats can scoop up to 800,000 litres of oil from the sea surface every day. Over 2 months after the spill first splurged off the Gulf Coast, workers here are frustrated that their expertise and equipment wasn't called in quicker. Indeed, they're not the only ones annoyed by what is being described as a chaotic cleanup. Time to take this one-of-a-kind boat out for another test drive. The Kadim R is a prototype built to deal with oil spills. An 18-metre-long sea hoover.
Scooped up by the extendable arms, the solid waste in the water is caught in one mesh before the hydrocarbons are channelled into a separator and stored.
Stored and ready to be sent to suitable containers. And while this ship has yet to be used on an actual oil spill, its makers are confident of its qualities. However, they underline that for optimum performance, it needs to be brought in while oil is thick on the surface.
We won't be able to deal with the oil that has been treated with dispersants, but we hope to be able to take care of the thicker pollution.
Across off the Gulf Coast, dispersants were added to dilute the oil, an effort to protect the coastline, it was said, but experts have questioned the amount that was used and whether or not it was the best line of defence. The kilometres of booms put in place also have their shortcomings. Easily swamped by waves, they need constant maintenance as birds break their chains. Thus, trained workers who know the area are needed. And that's another problem. BP's cleanup operation includes over 100 different companies, which has led to a lack of guidance and a lot of outsiders working in marshes they just don't know. Failing to see the fragility of the land, mistakes are made, leaving, for example, oil-soaked materials on the beaches where they get buried in the sand. What's more, locals say that while regional authorities are reacting, BP and Washington are taking too long.
And it seems like the higher executives in our government, with the executives of BP, it's like they just, oh, we'll worry about it later. You know, things need to happen now.
Over 2 months after oil first started splurging, an ongoing stream of sticky brown tar continues to lap the shore. Well, from scooping oil off the sea surface, we go underground now in the search of shale gas. According to recent research, Poland has plenty, potentially enough to double the EU's reserves. Trapped tightly in rock, shale gas has only recently become accessible thanks to advances in technology.
It might not look like the Persian Gulf, but it's just possible that Poland could become the European Qatar. It's in this bucolic North Polish countryside that Lane Energy, a British firm with backing from ConocoPhillips, is drilling Europe's first shale gas well. It's one of a host of big foreign firms investing here. But there are still a lot of big ifs.
It's drilling, and it's a few hundred metres at the moment. We only started last week. What we're doing is drilling down to the shale formations, and we will then try and test those formations to see the gas is there, can we get it out, and the quality of it.
This is shale, a non-porous rock type that often contains gas trapped in minuscule bubbles. Some analysts say the gas in Polish shale formations could add up to more than all of Europe's currently proven reserves put together. But extracting it requires complex new technology.
We have to pump with high pressure water, sands and chemicals to artificially open formerly existing fractures, then we have gas flowing to the surface.
Environmentalists worry that these techniques could pollute local water and damage the land.
After the whole operation, the land would be just devastated. I mean, so this is our concern, but for the time being, we are also concerned about the carbon footprint of the whole action.
But Poland's foreign minister says that's unlikely to prove burdensome, and moreover, this is a country where going green means switching to gas.
In Poland, we generate most of our electricity from coal, and if we started generating it from domestically extracted gas, then we could more easily fulfill the EU criteria for lowering CO2 emissions.
It will be several years before Poland starts actually extracting shale gas. But this first well should reach its target depth around the end of July, and 2 more will follow soon, providing some indication at least of just how much treasure there is at the end of the rainbow.
Well, as Poland digs down in order to get more energy, Ecuador wants to be paid for doing just the opposite. 1/3 of government revenue there comes from oil payments, but current exploitation means the rapid reduction of the rainforest there. And so President Rafael Correa has proposed to leave 20% of reserves untouched in exchange for $3.5 billion.
Yasuni National Park is one of the most diverse places on Earth. Located in Ecuador's Amazonian rainforest, it's home to thousands of species. Insects, birds, primates, jaguars, and pumas, scientists have a hard time cataloging them all. Yasuni is also a haven for the country's indigenous people, including the last to live in voluntary isolation. But what lies underneath this forest also threatens to destroy it. Nearly 1 billion barrels of oil sit undisturbed, for now. President Rafael Correa would like to keep it that way. In 2007, he came up with the novel idea of foregoing drilling in exchange for money. He wants the world's eco-conscious nations and companies to pay $3.5 billion, about half of the revenue Ecuador would be losing out on. After many hurdles, negotiators say an agreement should be signed by early July.
Oil revenue represents about 47% of the national budget, perhaps even more. The idea is to put an end to a development model that destroys nature.
Details of the agreement are still under wraps, save for the fact that Germany will contribute $50 million a year for 13 years. Belgium and France also plan to donate, and many more European countries have expressed interest. The trust fund will be administered by the UN Development Program, Ecuador's pledge to inject the money into sustainable energy as well as in social programs. It's promised the oil will stay underground forever, but on the off chance it goes back on its word, Ecuador will have to reimburse donors in full.
Well, that brings us to the end of this week's show. A big thanks to everyone who worked in it, and notably Thomas Studzianski, who's the man on the other side of this camera. Thanks also to you at home for having joined us. I hope you enjoyed. See you again next time.